Hello guys, it's me Luigi Marinus Gaming, and today I'm gonna review The Mitchells vs. the Machines, which was formerly named Connected but originally named The Mitchells vs. the Machines. So yeah, the movie went to a lot of changes during production. But after 3 years since the movie released, does this movie still hold up? Well, let's find out. I know this movie has been critically acclaimed, but what do I think of it? I mean, when the first trailer came out I was interested, and it looked really fun, but I didn't expect this movie to be this well received. I thought it was gonna be trashed by critics just like the Emoji Movie did before the movie would initially release. Like the story and concept sounded a little bit generic. Like phones bad, nature good, we heard it before in other animated movies. But somehow this movie just managed to work. I will give credit to Phil Lord and Chris Miller for producing this movie. They made, directed and produced masterpieces like the Lego Movie and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I actually really liked the story. It was pretty compelling. So the story is about Katie Mitchell, who wants to go to college but her dad canceled her plane ticket to college, and goes with her family on a road trip. I really like her character, she's very relatable. Even to me, because I also want to create videos for a living, and I also like to use my phone a lot of times when I'm bored. She's also very silly and quirky character. And even as someone with autism, I can totally relate to her character, because just like me, she has a lot of character flaws. I don't really relate to a lot of female characters, but I do share some relatability with her character. I also like how their son Aaron likes to talk about dinosaurs, but that's not his only character trait, because he also likes to talk to Katie, and being a supportive brother of her. There's also Monchi, their dog, who is just a silly dog that looks like potato. No offense to him though, he's adorable, but I mean the robots do make a joke about him looking like a pig or dog or loaf of bread. Mark Bowman is the CEO of PAL Labs, who created the PAL Max robots. He's a very likable enough character despite him causing the robot apocalypse by throwing away PAL. PAL is the villain of the movie, and honestly she's a really great villain despite being a literal phone. It's honestly pretty ironic considering they used to make an emoji the villain of the Emoji Movie. But somehow Phone was actually better as a villain. But I really like the motivation of PAL. Like, she believes phones are the only things important to life instead of like bonding with your family. And this is kind of what the Mitchell family is going through, and that's kind of what makes the story so great. So in a way, Mark's invention kinda made the Mitchell family come together and bond again. I also think Linda Mitchell is a likable character as a mother of Aaron and Katie, and wants the best for them. She also has some fighting skills, which shows how good of a mother she is when she sees Aaron getting taken and takes down the robots. And there's also 2 defective robots that I thought would have been annoying before watching the movie for the first time in 2021. But they actually turned out to be one of the funniest characters of the movie, being named Eric and Deborah Bot 5000, and whenever they're on screen, they always bring out some good jokes. And I didn't talk about the best character of the movie yet, or at least my favorite character, but I think he would be a lot of people's favorite character, which is none other than Rick Mitchell. I mean, come on man. He's the GOAT. How can you not like this character? Rick Mitchell is the dad of Katie and Aaron Mitchell. During the course of the movie, he has a great relationship with Katie, and he does have a lot of funny moments during the movie. Like, some of my favorite parts were the mule tour, the Rick Mitchell special, or even when he's trying to look up YouTube. But Rick Mitchell really has a great heart and wants to protect his family from the danger that we see during the movie. He also learns Katie Mitchell to drive and do a lot of activities together like a family. I also like how their neighbors, the Posies, are portrayed as the better family, but I'm glad they didn't do the trope where the bitter family are jerks to the other family. Kinda like what they did in The Croods too, even though admittedly that movie got better when both families learned to get along. But anyway, back to the Mitchells vs. the Machines. One of the things I also like about this movie is the animation. The animation is so stylized, like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but instead of a comic book style, it's more so animated like a children's book coming to life, where it takes some hand-drawn characters and make them computer animated, but with some hand-drawn facial expressions, just like Spider-Verse. Honestly, ever since this movie came out, this movie kinda started a trend with animated movies having a more stylistic or stylized animation style, with movies like The Bad Guys, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem and Wish. And even Pixar to some extent has been experimenting with stylized animation style with movies as Luca, turning written and Elemental by having a more cartoonish animation style. I really like that animated movies nowadays are trying to look real, and have a nice balance of either stylized animation or realistic animation. Heck, even The Wild Robot is gonna have a similar animation style, but not exactly the same as this one, but more similar to The Last Wish. But I like how The Mitchells vs. The Machines has a similar animation style as Gravity Falls, if they made a theatrical animated movie about it. I also like the commentary about technology in this movie. Like a lot of the technology that happened during this movie is kind of happening now as well with AI. The story of this movie is pretty compelling and clever, where it starts off as a fun family road trip, but then after a representation of the new invention of PAL, it becomes a robot apocalypse right when Mark said they would never turn evil. I liked when the Mitchell family used different ideas to get out of a sticky situation while avoiding the robots. I especially like the scene in the mall where the family has to work together to stop the machines with a PAL chip in it. And that Furby scene always cracks me up. This movie kinda does remind me of a Goofy movie, because it's about a road trip, and some story beats are similar to that movie. But not saying it's an exact copy of that movie though, since it's not. My only problem with the movie is that the story may be a little bit predictable by the climax of the movie, because you know they will save the world, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I do think third act was actually legit really good, like the Mitchell family disguised themselves as robots, kind of like Emmett and his friends in the Lego movie did. They get captured by PAL after Rick Mitchell finds out about what Katie said about her speech to her dad. She was like, "I actually don't want to get along with my dad again, I just want to get my life back," which during the movie she actually regretted saying that, but it still made Rick Mitchell upset. The next scene feels pretty much like a Pixar movie, where there's a tear-jerking scene of Katie Mitchell looking at her recordings and seeing a relationship with her dad, and wants to make it good. Rick Mitchell also has a scene with Mark where he watches Katie's video, and it's a lot like his relationship with his daughter. Katie wants to go to California to figure out who she wants to be, but her dad doesn't let her. Like earlier on the movie, he doesn't think Katie should make these videos at college, because they're gonna be able to help her, and he thought her videos were ridiculous. But he actually realizes her videos are art. Rick Mitchell wants to get the Munchie video of Katie on the monitors, so the robots can all get turned off. While PAL captures Katie, and has a speech about family which made PAL go to sleep mode because she got bored, and let Katie go, but luckily Rick Mitchell saves her, and they both sing their song that was brought up a few times before. I also like how Katie is part of the LGBTQ community, since she likes a cool girl named Jade, and by the end of the movie the family asks her if she and Katie are already a couple. If only more people could appreciate gay characters in movies or animated movies. I think this is one of the better animated movies that want to be hip and cool, because as much as I enjoy Hotel Transylvania movies, or the Emoji Movie, I can still see that some of the pop culture references or modern humor in those movies kinda ruin it a little bit. It didn't ruin it for me as much, but I can see how it can work better like in this movie. I will say that this is definitely one of the funniest Sony Pictures animation movies, because a lot of jokes do land. The story was greatly executed, which is why this movie is such a masterpiece. If the Spider-Verse movies didn't exist, this movie would have been the best Sony Pictures animation movie. But who knows, I might someday consider The Mitchells vs. The Machines my favorite Sony Pictures animation movie. I do relate more to this movie, but currently I do still think both of the Spider-Verse movies are the best Sony Pictures animation movies, but this movie is still a close second. And honestly, I think this movie is better than both of the Croods movies in The Incredibles. The Mitchells vs. The Machines is pretty similar to this movie in a lot of ways, but I think it's better than The Incredibles movies, because I like how it's about a family without superpowers, which kinda makes the stakes higher as well in my opinion. But don't worry, I still think both Incredibles movies are masterpieces, and I also like the Croods movies, especially because of the epic grug moments. I think the message of the Mitchells vs. the Machines is that you're not perfect and it's okay because nobody is perfect. I give the Mitchells vs. the Machines for my personal rating a 10 out of 10 and critical a 9.75 out of 10. Because admittedly the story is a little bit predictable, but not in a bad way though. Sometimes a predictable story can work, and this movie and the bad guys can do it the right way. And there's not much to say other than this movie just being simply amazing. This movie was one of the most surprising animated movies of 2021. And honestly, I think the Mitchells vs. the Machines, Raya, and The Last Dragon or Sing 2 should have won Best Animated Feature over Encanto in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, I love Encanto, but it just isn't my favorite movie of 2021. But honestly, I do think the Mitchells vs. the Machines kind of deserves a sequel. If Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse can get a sequel or a trilogy, then even the Mitchells vs. the Machines can get one as well. I hope you liked my review of the Mitchells vs. the Machines. This is probably one of my longer reviews, but I just really had a lot to say about this movie, and I really wanted to make a review on it. And stay tuned for my next reviews.